quick 24-minute victory there. I mean, that is much faster than our games yesterday. And a lot of that has to be attributed to the early lead that they managed to get themselves in their lane phase.
Yeah, a lot of that was off of Rux in the top lane on that Gnar, having about 30 CS up, got that first turret, and it was only really a Seraph's Embrace that was or Archangel Staff that was made onto his lane opponent, Gamsu there. Didn't go for the Catalyst, wasn't able to stay in lane and had to constantly back. And then Rux went bottom, didn't even have to blow his TP, and showed up just out of nowhere. So they kind of negated all of the roams that Kiwi Kid had made.
Have to question that build path a little bit. The early Archangels. I don't know if it was a desperation move, knowing how far behind he was, saying, "Well, I have the tier. The quickest way to get AP is to upgrade it and take advantage of the mana." Like, that's the only justification I can come up with. I don't agree with it.
I don't either.
Because then he's getting blown up. You've got LeBlanc and Cassidy getting blown up in team fights.
It's not really how you should play the Kassadin in the top lane. It's kind of one of those guys, you sit back and you're okay with being 20 CS down because you know you're Kassadin and you're going to do things later on.
Well, but of course they got capitalized on. That's the problem, right? Turrets went down, roams happened, Team Impulse. One thing I wanted to look at the beginning of the season is, hey, all the returning pros, or just anyone who's coming back, how well are they going to do in the beginning of the new season? And Xiao, specifically, you talked about, hey, who's getting early leads? Xiao won as LeBlanc against Lulu back when they played Team Liquid. Then here, he's Lulu against LeBlanc, beats up Shifter on the reverse matchup, right? Like, this guy is clearly keeping his game at the top tier. He's beating up on everyone he's playing against so far. And these are both very good mid laners he's facing. And plus, Rush not getting penalized for his early aggressive plays, Rux winning his lane and bullying people around on Gnar. Like, this is what this team wanted to do against Team Liquid, and they did it here.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good team composition for them. The fact that they got the Narvin combo, but also the fact that the Lulu was locked in versus the LeBlanc and Kassadin is going to do a lot of work for you, because that is a pick-oriented composition, and the fact that you have a Lulu who's going to wild growth somebody, who's going to give them that shield, and we saw that later on, is extremely effective, even if you're behind. But Xiao, and he had a CS lead in that match.
I do have to say, I liked the fact that they went for an early aggressive level 2 gank on the bot lane.
Yeah, that's cool.
But then on the side of Dignitas, I'm disappointed in the fact that Dignitas didn't do anything in the way of countering that. There was an opportunity there to go into the red side jungle and counter jungle while, all right, we're sacrificing a flash from our support in the bot lane, but we're gonna put this Jarvan behind. Didn't happen.
Exactly, and when Jat was here, we were kind of discussing it amongst the four of us about the things that were available. Right, so Crumbs could have easily walked into the northern jungle, stolen a red buff. Okay, there's no wards to put down. If this were 2 to 3 minutes later, you'd have even more things to gain by this jungler showing up and having to basically immediately recall. So the invade was a possibility, and they didn't even try. In fact, Team Impulse actually pinged their own red buff, saying, by the way, he's probably here stealing this. No one rotated. They were as aware as a possibility. Impulse was like, yeah, we got to give that one up. We're too low on health. We don't want to give up a wave in our lanes just to check our own red. And they said, yeah, that's the cost of this gank. And that wasn't even the penalty after all. So this entire game kind of felt like Crumbs not taking advantage that he could have had. It just felt like there were so many opportunities to go and make a play. There were a lot of preemptive defensive flashes. There was one, he was like well out of range of Corki. And like, there's also someone in the way to tank the missile, and he flashes away anyway. There was when Gnar fought him at like Jarvan, yeah, fought him at level 5 in Upper River. Like, repeatedly we're seeing Crumbs like just make really, really awkward decisions, and it's hurting Dignitas.
He did have a really good one where he went bottom, and he got the flash, and then Kiwi Kid was able to capitalize on it later on, which rewarded them some kills. And I think that Kiwi Kid actually showed some really good plays on Annie there. Like, a big thing about Kiwi Kid showing up in the mid lane was, it was like, all right, so Riv was talking about when you see an Annie by herself, you're usually like, oh, she's baiting, unless you're like, oh, it's just Kiwi Kid being Kiwi Kid again and getting caught out. That's like some next level stuff right there, right?
That's
like,
true.
You're just like, if this player has a reputation for getting caught and that player knows it, he can use that to his advantage and bait people even harder than he normally would have.
He's playing the long con. Kiwi Kid knows what's going on. He's like, 2014, I'm gonna get caught all the time. 2015, all baits.
Going to Worlds on the back of baits.
Going to Worlds on the back of baits.
I like that theory. I mean, I do have to say that the game was a lot closer in the early stages of the game, in that we had those roams from Kiwi Kid, and I thought they were relatively effective there. Yeah. But credit where credit's due. Keys to victory for Team Impulse. One, laners all ahead. Rux in the top lane, Xiao in the mid lane, and then in the bot lane, we saw a 20+ CS discrepancy between Apollo and Core JJ. I mean, then they took that lead and they actually capitalized upon it. They made something of it. Let's look at item builds. I want to specifically look at the fact that they built a front line specifically to deal with the composition that they were against.
Yeah, I loved it. So It's bittersweet because half of this is just Rush being rushed, and he's going to buy this item anyway. But Hex Drinker Jarvan was a great choice. Hex Drinker, and then going all the way to Maw of Malmortius on Gnar as well was a great choice. The fact that this is an item that is roughly gold efficient just on tank stats against magic damage, provided you're going to get the full value of the shield. And it's essentially like 25 free damage. That's kind of how the math works out. You're facing double AP. They don't spike very early on. Sivir's not a big threat early on either. And you get to have double Bruiser that is as tanky as they would normally be by building a Giant's Belt, yet also dealing meaningful damage, which lets you snowball a 25-minute win like they did. Really great play. I would say half of it was conscious by going Maw on Rux. Half of it is Rush being Rush, but hey, it worked out here.
I also really like the Warmog's pickup there
Yes.
on the Gnar because he gets the bonus HP and the bonus HP regen from being in Mega Gnar form, and also it multiplies the magic resistance that he had from the Maw of Malmortius. So it made him pretty much a little tankier if he had gone for Randuin's. It's kind of wasted stats at that point because Core JJ wasn't doing a whole lot, and the 500 range of Sivir is completely zoned by the composition they had. And the fact that you have a Lulu just for defensive things on top of everything.
Absolutely. We do have a replay that illustrates this a little bit, just kind of the coming to fruition of power there for Team Impulse. Irene, I'm going to let you take this one away. It's 20 minutes into the game. It's kind of, this fight really well illustrates, I believe, how far ahead TIP was in this game, and illustrates how their item builds allowed them to counter Dignitas effectively.
Yeah, and a little bit of the composition is coming into fruition here too. We're going to see Crumbs try to dive the backline of Apollo. He actually gets a Valkyrie away as the Tibbers comes in onto both Adrian and Apollo, but Apollo gets out. And then he gets ultimated from Xiao Wei Xiao, and you're going to see them kite backwards as Rux and Rush hold the front line. But Rush is still kind of undurable at this point, so we're going to start rolling the clip out, and we're going to see Rush isn't actually punished for his item build. They get the turret as this starts, but you can see there, Crumbs keeps going on Apollo, even though he got the back line. He gets the wild growth, and look at this, Rush, Adrian, they're all causing this zoning line, so nobody can get to Crumbs. He's easily picked off in that fight, and then they continue. Everybody's flashing away from Rush. He's like, I'll lock up Core JJ, while everybody starts coming in from picking up that back line. It's essentially a 4v5 because Crumbs overextends and because Apollo isn't caught out at that starting point where the Tibbers came down.
Very solid exhaust as well
Yes.
onto Shifter there, basically, ensuring that there was no possible way Apollo was going down. And then, of course, you're only 20 minutes into the game. Triforce Corki is going to turn around and start, raining hellfire on the team.
And good on them to make team fights happen, right? 20-minute sieges, we saw Team 8 pick Corki against CLG, and they got 3 out of turrets and then waited around for these burst casters to scale on up, the Lysandras and whatnot. Here's Triforce done on Corki, we've got Lulu at 1 completed item, and we're freaking fighting a Kassadin who does nothing at this stage of the game. Let's group up as 5. I dare you to Tibbers us. We're just better than you right now.
Yeah, and
they pushed.
Yeah, and another thing that I want to bring up there is since we're taking kind of stock of dragons, they had 2 dragons at that point, which gave them the turret pushing power, which allowed them to kill that turret before the fight started, and allowed them to get both the inhibitor and the inhibitor turret off of that fight.
Right, and that's what you want to do if you have an early game sort of bit of extra power, is it's not enough to just get the dragons, you have to get dragons and turrets in sync. The fact, as you said, that they had 2 dragons, that should be rolled into what you're already acquiring, which allows you to push into that second layer. Again, a great sort of perfect storm for these guys, a well-played game. I'm glad to see them play like this, and they're going to be even scarier with their full lineup.
I was about to say, let's take a look then at the fact that this was a 23 and 58 second victory, 24-minute victory, right? Very, very decisive. There's no way you can come out of a victory like that and say that they didn't play it well to some degree. And this is with Rush coming in last minute, right? So he's still adjusting, trying to move away from that solo queue play style a little bit, be more in tune with his team. I think in talking to the coaching staff, right? That's one of the things they're efforting is to make sure that hey, you can still be aggressive as a jungler. I think that's one of the
great.
most positive characteristics of him as a player. But let's find a way for this to fit into the team, right? Now when they get their full roster together and they have the time to really practice, do we see this roster being one that shoots to the top of the standings?
I thought so initially. When I heard about all these roster additions, and again, I really believed in Adrian and Apollo in the bottom lane, I think that's still going to be, they're going to hold up. Right? I think the All-Stars are still Xiao Wei Xiao and Rush and Impact, but the bot lane will hold up. I don't think they're a detriment. I've heard comments that they are going to be bad. I don't think that's true. So I do think this is going to be one of the top 4 teams in NA by the end of spring. That's my prediction, is top 40% at the very least. You've got, of course, other tough competition up there. And yes, they will continue to improve. I would say a slightly easy start for them here, right? They're facing, I would say, kind of faltering teams. But yes, we'll see them get even better as time goes on.
Yeah, I definitely say top 5 for them. I think they're up there. It really depends, because I think Rux is actually a really good player at what he does, and the fact that he came into this team, and he's just very consistent in the top lane. He shoves turrets. He'll show up to the team fight. Impact has a little bit more of a pushing, showing up to the team fights a little later. Actually already being in the team fights to start. I think he's a world-class player, though, of course. But I think that Rux isn't too far off in terms of his play style. But I think that's just definitely going to level them up.
All right, so yeah, hopefully it won't be too much of an adjustment going from Rux to Impact.
And hey, it proves how good Rux is.
And Rux doesn't do this, but Impact does, where he just shows up mid lane. Granted, he was with Faker for a long time. Just shows up mid lane like level 4, and you're like, what is he doing here? And they get a kill.
It's pretty great.
I have to say, Rux played fabulously. It was a great addition. It was great to have him in as a sub. Congratulations to TIP on that victory. It does bring them to 1-1 for the first week. We do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, Team Coast will be looking for their first win, rather, as they face off against Winterfox. Game 2 is coming up after this.
Cool.
Yeah.
Go Rux.
We're going to get the day going with our first match. It's Dignitas versus Team Impulse. Kiwi Kid is playing with fire here, literally. Xiaowei Xiaogan, what a bait in from Dignitas here. Oh, that's going to be the ultimate. One more time for Kiwi Kid. How far can this fight go, though? Crumbs goes down. The kite back is great from Impulse. And that's Crumbs against the wall. Just a few more shots. He almost can't move out of this one. Team Impulse coming up with a win here on day 2 of the North American Spring Split.